Hello, everybody. It is Thursday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined for our weekly Zeise's Right chat by Jason Mackey. Paul Zeise is actually off today, dealing with some personal things. So I got Jason here. Excited to talk to you, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I guess we have Zeise is right and Mackey is wrong or something like that. We'll figure it out. But yeah, happy to pinch it.
Yes, excited to have you on. And Jason also hosts the First 10 podcast. It's a short version podcast talking all things Pittsburgh sports. So make sure you're looking out for Jason's podcasts. Jason, we're going to get into the Steelers defense and how it's started to fly under the radar a little bit with the intense focus on the quarterbacks. Is that fair? And where are some of the issues on the defense that maybe we haven't quite talked about? I'm going to talk about drafting and how much of where the Steelers are is tied to that. We'll get a little quarterback talk and a little bit of receiver talk. But then, it's also been an action-packed week elsewhere. Jason, Penn State, USC playing at the Coliseum, Pitt playing Cal at Acrisure Stadium. Penguins opened their season last night in rather disastrous fashion. And, of course, the baseball playoffs are going on. So we're going to talk about all of that. Before we do, just want to thank our primary sponsor for this episode of the podcast, Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. There's no better place to get new windows and doors installed in your home than Pella, who can help you save on energy costs year-round. Schedule a free in-home consultation with your local Pella Windows and Doors to find the right product for your home and budget. Give them a call at 866-593-1560 to discuss your project further. That's 866-593-1560 to get started planning on your new windows and doors installation with Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. Okay, Jason, I looked through Jerry Dulac's chat on postgazette.com today. Lots of questions about the quarterback situation with Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. Lots of questions about George Pickens. Lots of questions about, Arthur Smith's offense and how different is it really from Matt Canada's. Anywhere you look, it's a similar discourse, and yet the defense got pushed around, I thought, on Sunday by the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, they forced the 3 turnovers, but Dallas moved the ball. Dallas looked more physical against them. I thought the Cowboys mostly dominated other than those 3 turnovers. Then you look back to the Colts game. They give up 27 points. I feel like we talk about the defense whenever it performs badly for the first day or two, and then it's all back on the quarterbacks and all back on offense. Is the defense in this instance getting off a little bit easy, Jason?
Well, you're asking that of a guy who wrote off of the Cowboys game that the defense didn't hold up at its end of the bargain. But I do agree with you. We praised this defense up and down through 3 weeks, and for good reason. They were excellent, especially in pass coverage, new guys making plays, there's splash everywhere, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith getting home, etc. But over the past couple of weeks, it has not been that. They haven't stopped the run. They haven't come close to stopping the run. I mean, there's a Patrick Queen question that's maybe awkward to ask at this point. Like, are we sure this is worth $41 million? And I'm not raising alarm bells. Like, I think Queen's going to be okay, but there's some awkward discussion with the defense that, I think is valid at this point. I think the defense should have been better than it has been the past 2 weeks. That's probably not a gigantic statement. And to me, the question is, are they more what they were through 3 weeks, or are they more what they were through the past 2? And I don't know the answer to that, but I feel like that's going to determine a lot with the Steelers season. I mean, they don't have the offense. They don't have the other weapons to win if their defense isn't elite.
Yeah, and I think that's noteworthy. And you brought up the trouble against the run this week against Dallas.
Dallas could run the ball at them. They ran the ball at will against the Steelers.
Straight at them. And I decided I'm a data guy, so I like to get into the PFF scores. I don't think that they're, gospel, and by all means, that you can't disagree with Pro Football Focus grades. But I do think as general trends, they can be, worth paying attention to. And the theme of the week has been, I think, set by Minkah Fitzaptrick, that the problem for the Steelers defense has been communication with, different guys in and out, and wanting to play, a more simple brand. And I think that's certainly applicable to the secondary. But I looked up the defensive line PFF scores outside of Cam Heyward, who has been very good. You have Keeanu Benton at 65.7 for the season. Larry Ogunjobi is at 55.1. Isaiahh Loudermilk is 48.2. Montravius Adams, 46.2. Dean Lowry, 38.4. Those aren't good, Jason. And then I think you look at where the good run defense scores have been on this team. That's all linebackers and safeties. It's not those guys, at the first layer of the defense. Do you think the defensive line is a weakness that's maybe slid under the radar, especially because of the big plays that Dallas was able to hit on Sunday? When we did our post-game show, I said that was kind of more of a first half thing, and then in the second half, it just seemed like Dallas was wearing the Steelers out up front.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a weakness. I don't think it's a glaring weakness. What worries me there more is the depth. If they would have an injury up there, I think it's really bad. Like, by and large, if you're telling me Cam, Ogunjobi, and Keeanu Benton are going to be healthy for the year, like, to me, that's good enough defensive line play. Now, do I think it's elite? No. Would I not address that in the draft part of the double negative? No. I think they need more there. But I've been, and I'm glad you brought this up, Adam. After every game, I end up looking, through the stat packet they give us at games and looking at who was the leading tackler, kind of matching it with your eyes. Far too many times in this defense are we seeing Minkah Fitzpatrick, DeShon, Elliott, guys in the second and third levels leading the team in tackles. Not that I expect a defensive lineman to do it, but I'd like it to be a linebacker. I'd like to see Minkah Fitzpatrick not asked to do as much in the run game, DeShon Elliott not to do as much in the run game because they're not getting anywhere meaningful. I want to see more tackles in the backfield, and I just don't think the Steelers' defense has been able to do that. Some of it's been defensive line oriented. Some of it has been, I talked about Patrick Queen earlier, bringing new guys in. Their outside linebacker situation. I know this isn't what you asked me about, but like that legitimately worries. But you have TJ Watt and what? In like half the practice squad going into the Raiders game. Like that, you could triple team Watt at that point. So yeah, there's a lot of concern on that end for me.
Yeah, and I think when I look further into the run defense grades, and it's striking to me how well the outside linebackers have been good in run defense, and how much those guys up front have not necessarily been. Yeah, and so you're losing those guys. I don't think just as a matter of are you going to have trouble getting to the quarterback. That's been a core of stopping the run for you. And I wrote the note down. When I was doing my post game stream, I said I thought when Nick Herbig left the game, that was when Dallas kind of flicked the switch and was able to kind of just run downhill on the Steelers. And that really did seem like kind of a pivot point in that game to me. I did want to ask about the communication issues, Jason, and how much do you think having all those run responsibilities, for the safeties is playing into that? And, on any given down, do they have so many responsibilities and so many things to pay attention to that communication issues are somewhat inevitable? And is that what he was getting at when he was talking about simplify?
Yeah, I go around about this, Adam. One side of my brain says, I don't want to hear about communication issues. You're a professional athlete. Communicate, figure it out. You practice all week, whatever. It has like zero sympathy for that. The other side of it begins to think, well, look at Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's talking about wanting the defense to be simplified. He's making a lot of tackles in run defense. He's clearly a big part of that, whether we want him to be or not. Doesn't have a sack or an interception in the past couple of years. I don't know what the counter's at right now. Are we doing things wrong? Are they using Minkah differently? Are there too many responsibilities asked of defensive backs in the run game? Is communication hard because you're not freeing guys up to play football? I mean, I look at that across sports. Like the best hitting coaches can get, somebody out of their own head and just allow them to see ball, hit ball. The best coaches on the ice in hockey, can get guys to play together and not really think and have the puck on a string and play instinctual hockey. That's kind of what I'd like to see Terrell Austin or Mike Tomlin, whomever it is, get these guys back to playing instinctual football. And that's this amount of smoke that is built around this sort of concerns me with that.
Yeah, I agree. Jason, something else I wanted to ask you about was drafting and how I think that this is a persistent issue that just does not get talked about in season, because it is kind of a more big picture thing that you talk about in the off season. But I think it's applicable in moments like this when we talk about depth specifically, whether it's in the secondary, whether it's up front. They just have. It still feels like this is a team that has so many holes that need to be filled that you can't fill with one or two draft classes. And I think that's part of the consequence here of some of those bad drafts we look back at, the Chase Claypool draft that they got basically nothing from. There just seem to be positions on this team, Jason, that should be populated by guys or like even guys who are still on the team, like Isaiahh Loudermilk, to Marvin Leal, I think falls in that conversation of they were drafted and expected to develop into more than they've been. Is that maybe the simple answer that's just not so fun to talk about in the season when you want to talk more X's and O's, and you want to focus on individual games and what happened in them and what went wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with discussing what went wrong in games and whatever. And Adam, I don't know about your prediction, but I mean, I had the Steelers at 9-8. Maybe a generous 10-7. That's right about where we stand. Like the Steelers are who we thought they were. They're failed in some areas. I think they can excel in some areas. I don't think we've seen a total picture either. Whenever they go to Russell Wilson, what that looks like, how that jibes at the offense, I don't think they've involved Najee Harris or George Pickens or gotten enough out of them. So, I mean, yes, to circle back to your point, I agree with you. I think there's areas of this team that are not deep enough. Defensive line is very high up on that list. I don't know if we want to have this conversation now, but like if we look at the draft right now, given the information we have, that's probably where I'd go in the draft. I want a defensive lineman. I want somebody who can stop the run. Maybe not necessarily a nose tackle, but I want the heir apparent to Cam Heyward. I mean, I'm okay with Watt and Highsmith rushing the edge. Like I want somebody with a little bit more bulk. But anyway, like I get that you've invested picks, you've invested draft capital in these guys, and they just haven't panned out. And I think you can look all around the field and see that. Wide receiver is a perfect example of that. They've had to address the offensive line recently, but for a while that wasn't a focal point. And defensive back, we know about the Steelers' issues drafting defensive backs. So there's been a lot of areas where they've come up short, and I think that's how you ultimately get to 9-8, 10-7, and you're not 13-4.
Yeah, and I think it shows up in those areas because you have to allocate free agent resources like to middle linebacker because you've utterly failed, with Devin Bush and some of the guys you brought in, you failed to develop someone there. So then you have to go spend some money on the outside. So even if that feels like a position that's been addressed, that takes free agent dollars away from other places. So, I think it's worth noting. I don't want to get too far into it in season, but it's just something that's standing out to me. Jason, let's do a little bit of quarterback talk. I'm going to be super honest with you. I'm a data guy. That. I think the data says that Justin Fields has been fine. Has he been unbelievably phenomenal? No, absolutely not. But the data says he's been fine, probably better than the Steelers have had in some time. I wrote last week that, his scores were better through the first 4 games than any of Ben Roethlisberger's in like the last 6 seasons of his career. Does that mean he's better than Ben Roethlisberger over the last 6 seasons? No. But just that he had started fairly well and that it was noteworthy. And the best argument I've seen for Russell Wilson from people is kind of holding up his resume and saying 9-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion 10 years ago, and maybe he can do more checks at the line of scrimmage. I'm not saying that there's not a persuasive case for Russell Wilson. What I am saying is I haven't heard it made yet, and I just feel a lot of falling back on things he did 10 years ago.
All right, so let me bring the perspective of someone who's around there a decent amount. Obviously not as much as the beat guys, but I'm around the team enough, I think, to grasp this. I've been around locker rooms enough to get this dynamic. Here's my argument for playing Russell Wilson. Aside from, and I understand what the numbers say. I think Fields numerically has been a pretty decent quarterback. You brought in a guy to do a certain thing. You brought in a guy with a resume who walks around that locker room, and he's different than most guys who walk around that locker room because of what he's accomplished, because of his stature, because of what he represents around the NFL. You brought him in here to do a certain thing, and really through something of your own stupidity, we're in this position. Like, you can criticize them for having him push a sled during a test that Russell Wilson should not have to do. And then he re-aggravated it. I don't know exactly why. Anyway, you brought him in here to play. You've got to play him. Russell Wilson deserves the opportunity to quarterback the Steelers. Now, if it doesn't work, I'm okay going back to Justin Fields. At this point, I've got a pretty good snapshot of what Justin Fields can be in the NFL, and I'm largely fine with it. It's supported numerically, supported by the eye test. Is it perfect? No. But, is there talent there? Can I work with it? Yeah, I think I can. I think there's some other stuff that ails this offense. Justin Fields is not my biggest concern. But you bring in Russell Wilson, you're having trouble scoring points, you're having trouble getting the ball downfield. Your number one wide receiver is upset / throwing a tantrum / acting out. You've lost 2 in a row. I don't know if we said this. You need to start faster. They could use Russell Wilson's voice. To me, this is the crease in the formation that you use to put Russ in there. Now, if he stinks for a couple weeks, then I'm going back to Fields. But like, I brought him in here to do a job. He's earned that based on his play, his resume. I think that's where the resume comes into play. But it's a weird interpersonal move to bring a guy into your locker room to do something you expect him to do. He gets hurt doing something you require him to do, and then you don't really play him when he could help you in that moment. Maybe that articulated it. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
I mean, I think that's where I come down to of, I'm not opposed to necessarily seeing what they have, especially because sometimes I exist, I think, a little too much in the realm of what people are talking about rather than what's happening. And I just don't want to hear the quarterback conversation. As you probably guessed from the lead topic on the video, I'd like to talk about some other things, but it just feels like we're not going to go anywhere in terms of discourse until people see what Russell Wilson can or can't do. And to me, that's the thing that matters to me, but it shouldn't matter to the Steelers at all.
I know, Adam, but and I get the Justin Fields numbers argument. Maybe people are tired of talking about it. Yes, I agree with you. I just want to see what Russell Wilson has, so then you can kind of balance the equation. But there are very few people, and let's just call a spade a spade. I think there's probably a lack of necessary leadership. I don't want to say a lack of leadership, but like, Pickens doing what he's doing should not be accepted, in my opinion. Like, that is not his behavior, jogging on routes, going off by himself. Even last year, refusal to block, putting stuff on the eye black. Like, that's not what you want. That is not conducive to winning. Now, that being said, I understand where George Pickens is coming from. He wants the ball. He's a competitive dude. He wants to get out there and help his team. I think it's coming from a good place. I think it's being shown all the wrong way. Now, you need a personality to sort of corral that, to run as an intermediary or something like that between Arthur Smith or the offense or whatever. Say, like, let's get George involved. Get him feeling good. Get him a part of this thing. And then you come over on George, say, like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to get you involved. Shut up. Just sort of, I don't want to say an adult in the room because that's condescending toward other people, but like, Russell Wilson has some miles on the tires, and I mean that in a complimentary way. If he can back it up with his play, I don't know if he can or not, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. You brought him in here to do that. So yeah, maybe we're over obsessing over the quarterback position. I get that, but again, let's rewind back to this offseason and how gigantic of a story it was that Russell Wilson came in here, how Mike Tomlin has talked about it, how everybody expected this to go. Like, he deserves a chance to play.
Yeah, I can see that. Jason, let's quickly just get to the receivers before we move on. Got a lot of other topics to get to, but what happens when no one's open for Russell Wilson either? Are we finally going to focus on the receivers room as kind of the original sin of this offense, and going back to the Deontay Johnson trade and really just not addressing it from that point forward?
We could. I don't think we know, though. That would be my argument. What I see in Justin Fields, I have no problem with it once again, but I don't see a lot of him going through progressions. I see him looking for his first option, maybe the second one, and then if none of that's there, just taking off. And he should. Like, he can fly. Why not use what you got? I'm curious to see what Russell does if nobody's open immediately. I think that's one of the reasons Pat Freiermuth has not quite been involved as much yet. Like, okay, one's not open, two's not open, three's not open. Where's Pat? Something like that. Russell's not going to be looking to take off, and, he can't run the way Justin Fields is. No breaking news there, but can he find Freiermuth over the middle? Can he find Darnell Washington? I don't know when Michael Pruitt gets back, probably a little bit from now, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, those tight end safety valves that I think are a part of Arthur Smith's offense that are there that Justin Fields generally doesn't get to because he takes off, because he can. Anyway, I don't think we have a true picture. I do think they're light in the wide receiver room. I've made no bones about that. The last time you and I got together on one of these things, we talked about it. And I still think they should be extremely active in trying to help that. But I don't know if we have a true picture of sort of the progressions and the depth of pass catchers if they have.
Going to continue to monitor that situation. We got a lot more to talk about, Jason. Penn State, USC, Pitt-Cal, and some other baseball and hockey topics. Before we do, just want to thank another sponsor. It's Goldberg, Persky, and White. If you were diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky, and White. For over 40 years, their firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit gpwlaw.com for a free consultation. Okay, Jason, let's get into this Penn State game. I'll be out at the Coliseum this weekend for Penn State USC.
Will you?
Yes, I will be. I'm not working, though. I'm just attending, and then I'm spending the rest of the week in LA. getting a little R&R here after a busy start to football season. And I keep coming back to this. I saw Kevin Horn, he's a host of one of the Penn State podcasts out there. He said on social media that it's rare for Penn State to be in this position where they're a favorite of less than a touchdown. It's very often either you're an underdog to Ohio State, in more recent years, Michigan, or Penn State's often a favorite of 10 plus points against whatever else the Big Ten has to throw at them. So through that lens, Jason, how important is this game for James Franklin and his, standing at Penn State? Because, he doesn't win the big games. That's the big criticism of him. But the other side of the argument is that he almost always wins the games that he's supposed to. I think this one falls in that category, but not as strongly as some of the others. And I think if you lose a game like this, then you start to point to, well, he's not even beating, solid teams that he's better than.
Yeah. I'm going to try to articulate this cliche the right way, but I mean, it does apply here. You can't win the season right now, but you can lose it. Does that make sense? Like, the ultimate prize is still going to be, the ultimate regular season prize, I should say, is still going to be Ohio State, right? That's going to be the biggest proving ground for James Franklin, whether he can take care of Ohio State at Beaver Stadium. That game to me means considerably less if they can't take care of USC. I agree with you. This is a game they should be able to handle. But just because you beat USC, I feel like it doesn't then solve the bigger problem in the room. Yes, I think this is a game Penn State should win. I think they have the talent to do it. Have they played a complete game yet? That's kind of what I ask about. I don't know if they have. Like, played a really good half at West Virginia. Maybe who was at Kent State? They really beat up on them pretty good. A little bit close against Illinois. Like, they've had fits and starts and some things that really worked. They get Tyler Warren really involved one game. The other game, Katron Allen runs for a bunch, whatever. The defense is really aggressive, but I'm looking for Penn State to really put it together and just dominate somebody. Like, not a patsy. I think USC is a good team, maybe not a great team. Can this weekend be the time where they do it? And I don't know if we're in the prediction segment, Adam, but I think they do handle USC quite a bit. I think Penn State is a step above where they normally are. I don't know if that closes the gap with Ohio State or not, but I don't see USC being an impediment for James Franklin at this point.
I agree, Jason. On our Penn State podcast, I had with Joel Haas, who covers Penn State for us. I kind of go, it's kind of the theme of, like, they seem to be underperforming what my eyes tell me on a week-to-week basis, especially offensively. You point out that Illinois game. Some of the efficiency numbers from that one say that they dominated Illinois, but yet they were in a one-score game until pretty late. So I think you're right. This is a matter of, can you finish? Can you dominate? Can you I don't know if you can dominate USC, but can you play a complete game and win convincingly in a tough environment? I think this is a big pivot point for the season in terms of the playoff, because I think if you win this game, you're well positioned to go 11-1, even if you lose to Ohio State. You're well positioned to host a home game against a team that you should be able to beat. I think if you lose this game, now you're in that conversation of struggling to get in one of the last seeds, having to go on the road, and everything just gets a lot more difficult. So I think this is a big game for Penn State. I'll be curious to see how things play out. Pitt also has, I think, a pretty important game this week. They draw Cal. Obviously, they are 3-2, but they almost upset Miami over the weekend. I think they're a plucky team. College Game Day was there. There's going to be some attention on this game. Do you think Cal is sneakily the best test Pitt has gotten yet?
Yes, I do. I don't think North Carolina is very good, Adam. And I give Pitt credit for handling them the way they did. I mean, maybe Cincinnati, but I would take Cal over Cincinnati at this point. And, you know what worries me about Pitt? It's like the classic Pitt performance. And I'm sort of hoping or thinking Cade Bell's offense is like Pitt-proofed Pitt. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you should be able to score points. Can the defense prevent them? Yeah, they should be able to prevent Cal from scoring fewer than 50 points or even 40 points. But I do think this is the toughest test that Pitt has faced. I think Pitt has some concerns that I'd like to see them alleviate against Cal, not overusing Desmond Reed, finding the right balance there. Rodney Hammond III coming back. Didn't really get that involved against North Carolina. I'd like to see them maybe balance it out a little bit more. If you've got an opportunity for Reed in the passing game, maybe give him a blow in the running game. But a very tough test this weekend, Adam, and I just think it is maybe time to ratchet up the seriousness or intensity with which we look at Pitt football at this point. This is a team that can win the ACC. I don't think any of us said that at the beginning of the season. I think we all said that, hey, they'd be lucky to, win 6 games, maybe 7, maybe go to a minor bowl, something like that. We're not there. The calculus has changed with this team, very much so. Joe Starkey wrote a column on it yesterday. I thought it was outstanding. Whether it's Cade Bell, Eli Holstein, a lot of us being wrong, Pat Narduzzi doing an excellent coaching job, whatever you want to say. It's a new state of affairs for Pitt.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is one of those games where you start to prove it, because I think you look at Cincinnati. They were predicted to finish last in the Big 12. It was a high character win for Pitt, but I don't know resume wise what it told you about them. The Backyard Brawl is a rivalry game. You give them credit for winning, but anything can kind of happen. I think West Virginia's going to end up being a pretty solid team. They beat Oklahoma State pretty badly this past week, so that's a good win. But I think now this is the first real conference test that you're going to look at and say, all right, are they really among these teams that can win this conference this season? I think it's a pretty small group. Do I think Pitt's far and away like a favorite or anything? Not yet. I'm not at that point yet, but I think this is a game where you start to separate yourself if you win it. Jason, let's talk a little bit about the Penguins opening night last night. They lose 6-0 to the New York Rangers. I don't want to overreact to one game, but I'm just going to say that they played how I feel about them, which is you've got an aging core surrounded by no one who's capable of making a difference. I don't think they're going to lose 6-0 most nights, but it was just blah. And that's where I am about the Penguins.
It was awful. I was there. It was so bad, Adam, that you almost have to laugh at it. I know people today don't want to, laugh at anything, and they want the Penguins to be good, but like anything they could have tried went wrong. Odd man rushes, defensive zone coverage. Ryan Graves looked completely out of sorts. Tristan Jarry looked lost, not confident, confused. I'm not sure which. The power play was the same old struggle. It looked like they barely worked on anything. The bottom 6 didn't have any sort of punch, sustained possession. I shouldn't say that. The third line was decent with Rutger McGroarty, Lars Eller, and Jesse Puljujarvi. But it's not always going to be this bad. To me, what we looked at is an okay team that played horribly. The Rangers, who very easily could win the Stanley Cup. I mean, a truly elite team. An amalgamation of things. And the Penguins can be better than that. They're going to get better goaltending. They darn well better play more responsible with the puck and more responsible in their own zone. That was not good. But, the Penguins aren't going to be an elite team, but you would hope that they play a little bit better. Maybe that's a 1 or 2 goal game. But I understand the people who are upset. I understand the people that, maybe haven't paid a whole lot of attention to the Penguins. They realize that these guys are aging and it's not, not great. And then you turn it on and it's 6-0 real quickly. You're going to say, well, heck with this. They stink. See you later. I think that's the risk they run.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still going to keep turning them on, but
you're paid to do it.
Yeah, right. True. But
if you weren't, would you voluntarily watch that? Probably not.
I think I probably would for, at least until they really go in the tank. But what else are you going to watch in the winter, Jason? So
college basketball, I don't know. American Gladiators.
That is true.
Quite anything other than 6-0.
Should be some interesting things going on in the college basketball realm. I'm excited to get into that on some of these shows moving forward. But I think it's just a matter of they're not disproving any narratives, and until they do, I think that you're going to have this problem of just blah and apathy. Jason, we can't end a video without you and I talking a little baseball. So I want to ask you this: how far away does the level of baseball we're seeing in this MLB postseason seem to you? Especially because, I'm not just asking this question because, the elevated stage of the postseason and the better camera shots that really, reinforce the gravitas and everything.
Production value.
Right. It's not just that. I mean, I had this thought when the Pirates were, blowing those series against the Padres and the Diamondbacks that kind of started the inexorable slide toward where they finished. And I think that this postseason is more reinforcing how I felt then than it is something I just bubbled up in my brain. But it just seems so far away with some really great players making some really great plays, in crucial spots.
Now, I'm going to completely contradict myself here. Obviously, I wrote a column a couple days ago, very critical of the Pirates and their detachment from reality, and I believe every word that was in it. I'm not backing off from any of that. But I will argue that I don't think they're that far off from that baseball, Adam. I really don't. I look at the Pirates and think they've got a pretty good starting rotation and pitching staff by and large. And I truly believe that. Like if you're headlined by Paul Skeens, I'll take Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, Luis Ortiz as my top 4. From there, I go, Falter, Oviedo, Burrows, Chandler, Harrington, Ashcraft. You can basically go 10 guys that are pretty decent. I would like to see them spend some money on the bullpen. I'd like to see them get a bat. I'd like to see them bring back Andrew McCutchen. If you can figure out Key Brian Hayes' health, I'm fine with Brian Reynolds, O'Neal Cruz, and Joey Bart in my lineup. Like, do I think they are ALCS, NLCS level good? No, I don't. But, it's where I come down with my frustration with them sort of tolerating another 76-win season, because I don't think they're a 76-win team. I think they're an 83, 84 win team this year. And it's because of some of the stuff you mentioned, some of the Padres series, Dodgers series, 10-game slide. There's so many games fundamentally, and this is anecdotal, it's not an exact number, that the Pirates gave away. That with a better standard set, a better culture of expectation set, the Pirates, again, should be able to juice 6 or 7 more wins out of their season. So take that. Increase it by a year, increase it by what should be more spending and allocating major league payroll resources to actual major league players. I don't think they're terribly far off.
There's a note of optimism, everybody. I think,
but sorry, I should have added the qualifier. I do think that in terms of process and preparing and creating a culture and stuff, they should have made changes. They should have made much more sizable changes. And the fact that they didn't do those concerns me. So I guess I should add the caveat there that,
No, I don't disagree with you, Jason. I think it is a matter and I think that's my problem of them having gone down this whole path, of the last 5 years and burning everything to the ground, is that I didn't feel like they were as far off as they felt they were in 2019. My concern is that I don't think they're in a vastly different place now in terms of, you've got some pieces. It's just a question of, are you going to put more together? And
that's fair.
It's the same question. Last time they went down a different road, so maybe we should be more optimistic that at least they haven't committed to blowing things up. But I certainly see your argument, because I think that's an argument that I was making 5 years ago to have avoided everything we've had to live through since then. So
here, let me just add one more thing, Adam. Here's where I'm at with it. If they would have fired Derek Shelton and the majority of his staff, and hired a veteran manager, name him, Terry Francona, Joe Madden, whatever, somebody who you bring him in, you say, whoa, he's coming here. Okay. It's like the game changes. Is anybody that upset about the Pirates anymore? I don't think so. I don't think we're investigating like the legitimacy of Bob Nutting's ownership or the finances or whatever. It just looks like the Pirates don't give a crap, because they're saying we're going to bring the entire group back despite having, more talent and basically doing nothing with it, winning the same number of games. And it looks like complacency and mediocrity. I think that's what's so offensive about it. But anyway, I just, if they would have made sizable changes and shown that this is not acceptable, I don't think people would be as mad.
Well, and they're just so unpersuasive in making the argument. And I think that is part of the problem as well, is that you don't see Ben Cherington banging the table or saying things that anyone's going to remember, and displaying the frustration. It's just kind of the same mealy mouth, executive BS that
they'll remember them, Adam. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Just not for the right reasons. We will remember leading us toward winning. Well, that was one. We won more games, clear evidence of improvement. Yeah, they'll be remembered. I'm not sure the Pirates want that.
Yeah, so we'll keep monitoring it. But Jason, thanks for stopping by this week. Always a great conversation. We're going to have a lot more here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. Christopher Carter will be back with the North Shore Drive on Friday. He's also going to host the Steelers postgame show after Steelers Raiders in my place. And then obviously we're going to have a ton of reaction to that game next week. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm. We always appreciate that. And we will talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.